Ruszkik Haza!
Russians go home. Today we lend a voice to millions of Europeans from here, Budapest. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Duna Event Hall and online. On the event organized by the European Democratic Party and Everybody's Hungary's People's Party. It's a very personal occasion for me today because as a Hungarian American I feel that there are lots of emotions behind the fact that both of my home countries are attacked, and Russians attacked both of them, attacked free media, the fairness of elections, judiciary systems, and they are aligning us against each other, inciting hatred and polarizing the society. Those who are here or at the Duna Event Hall on our conference Russians Go Home are all heroes fighting against Russian influence. We have Péter Márki-Zay, president of Everybody's Hungary People's Party. Károly Herényi, former head of the parliamentary group of the Hungarian Democratic Forum, key party of the regime change. Stefano Bottoni, associate professor of the University of Florence, one of the best scholars and critics of the Orbán system and the dictatorship of Putin. And Sandro, the Secretary General of the European Democratic Party, a true European fighter. Russians go home. Let's begin our conference today. With this, I would like to give the floor to Péter Márki-Zay, the president of the Everybody's Hungary People's Party. Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome our distinguished guests, and let me tell you all how proud I am that our little Hungarian party, Hungary for All People's Party, has successfully joined the European Democrats 6 months ago, and it's a great honor to welcome here Sandro, our Secretary General. Thank you.
The joining of the European Democratic Party is part of a longer process and a couple of years of knowledge. Our official joining happened in the Bilbao conference last November, the conference of the party, and back there listening to the speakers, it was quite comfortable feeling to see that we Hungarians, members of the Everybody's Hungary People's Party, found a nice family, because compared to all other European party groups, we are having the firmest stand against Russian influence, protecting press freedom and so on. So, viva the European Democratic Party. In the history of Hungary, as we see it in Eastern Europe, in the history of these nations, it was always quite common to see influence of the West and the East, conflicting influences of Russia, Byzance, West and the East. We were always swinging between these two shores. When it came to the most important events of our history, Russian influence was always there, systematically oppressing our will for freedom. That happened during the freedom fight of 1948, where Habsburg forces were helped by the Russian Empire. We seen this happening during the revolution of 1956, when a successful revolution was beaten on the 4th of November by Russian troops and their Hungarian counterparts. And now, since 1990, Hungary is an independent state, protecting its freedom and joined freely the West, the European Union, strongest military alliance of the world, NATO. We have seen in recent times that nowadays the Eastern dictatorship is still threatening us. Returning to the dictatorship is still a real threat. However, this threat is not only for Hungary. The same happened in Czech Republic, in Poland earlier in history, and now we can quite clearly say that the Russian empire is not only a threat to Hungary, but Hungary as well. Zoltán Sbíró, historian, we hear him to talk a lot about the history of Russia and aspirations of Russia. I remember that 30 years ago, when I graduated, I listened to his lectures at the university, and back then he was talking about the fact that 100 years ago, Western and Russophile movements struggled in the history of Hungary and Russia. This Eastern and Western orientation was not only important for Hungary, Ukraine, but also within Russia was an important question. And I deeply committed, deeply believe that not only us Hungarians, but Ukrainians and Russians also want to belong to the West. Russians do not like to live in a world where the critics of the empire and the authorities are killed, their planes crash or fall out of the window. No one wants to live in a country where they cannot tell their opinion freely, where they cannot say the word war, because officially the fact that they attacked with a deadly war Ukraine and they kill children and mothers, that's only a special military operation and not a war. No one wants to live in a country like this. When Ukrainians are depicted in Hungarian and Russian propaganda with false accusations, it is worth thinking about the fact whether you want to live here in Hungary in a dictatorship like this, in poverty and slavery, or similarly to the 1 million Hungarians who have left our country in the last couple of years. You want to go west. Even the family of the prime minister went to the west, to the US and not to Peking. What a lie that illiberal democracies should be anyway better than the West. For hundreds of years, we know that Western freedom, rule of law, always wins. It's quite clear that enterprises will be successful there. Innovation is safe there. From Russia, people are migrating there, enterprises migrating there. The intellectual force is there. So that's why in every conflict, the West has always been successful. So we shouldn't blame Ukrainians and Russians that they choose West instead of the East. They choose prosperity and freedom instead of slavery and dictatorship. I must tell you that with this thought, I haven't said nothing new to those who lie the opposite. Viktor Orban quite convincingly agreed with us, what we are saying now, that although that oil is coming from East, freedom always comes from the West. He told that himself. He knew that when it was free for them to say so. And this young Viktor Orban, when he left office in 2002, actually considered Ferenc Gyurcsány a traitor because they let Russian agents into the ministries. They sealed long-term energy contracts, and that these are the points where Viktor Orbán criticized the Gyurcsány government back then, has been since committed by Viktor Orbán as well. Quite surprisingly, earlier Viktor Orbán has never praised Putin, but later this changed. After the 25th of November 2009, he changed his position and started criticizing the EU and started praising Putin. How come that half of the country followed this turn of events? Maybe those who loved Viktor Orbán for his firm stand against Russia. How can these people, accept the lies of Viktor Orbán that Russia is now source not only of oil but prosperity? How can it happen that such a U-turn took place in the case of Viktor Orbán? What could have happened on this 25th of November 2009, turning him to the biggest fans of Putin instead of the biggest critics? Hopefully we will learn this sooner or later, but nonetheless, if someone is blackmailed in a manner, we true Hungarian patriots shouldn't lose our common sense. When we started organizing this conference a couple of months ago, it was still unclear. We did not know how topical this issue is going to be, Russian influence in Europe and especially in Hungary before the elections. We now have information, we hear audio recordings in public which quite clearly state that in Hungary there's a puppet government of Russia, and they are no longer serving Hungarian interests. And it was quite shocking for me to hear that, even though if we say that there's a traitor and they are supporting anti-Hungarian sentiments in neighboring country, Fico, Simeon, and so on, the sad truth in this audio recording between Lavrov and Szijjártó, it became quite clear that this did not happen based on the instruction of Russians. They did this by their own free will, and they actually asked for help to get Slovakian parties into the Slovakian parliament instead of Hungarian minority parliaments. So Viktor Orbán supported not the Hungarian minority parties, but oppressing Slovakian parties. This evidence in itself should be enough for a life sentence, because they acted against the Hungarian nation. For our dear European guests, I would like to explain that this kind of Russian influence is not only affecting Hungary, but the whole of the European Union, because Putin is not only wants to restore the Stalin Empire, the old Soviet Union, including Czechia, Poland, and the Baltic countries, in order to oppress them. They actually consider the whole of the European Union as an enemy, and Putin is working on dismantling, destroying the European Union, and Orbán is not his only agent. We see that Fico, with his votes, started to join Viktor Orbán in these efforts, and this means that Putin has now 2 votes in the European Commission. Let's not forget that Brexit definitely happened based on Russian interest and with Russian support. Dismantling the European Union started with the Brexit, but that's not the end. You know that all the extremists on the left and on the right, those working against the European Union on dismantling democracy, all of them are serving the interest of Putin. They are the agents of Putin. We can talk about Le Pen, Salvini, AfD, Vox. these people are Russian agents. Let's not think that Szijjártó is the only spy of Putin in the European Union. Let's not think that Orbán is the only agent acting against his home country in the European Union for Russian interests. The extent of this issue can be exemplified by the Paks 2 nuclear power plant construction project. Hungary's biggest, most defining investment and development for decades. This development was the winner of this tender was selected against European Union regulations. It's not the cheapest offer that was selected. It's all based on a secret deal between Putin and Orbán. This is not only this is more than simple corruption. This is actually treason against your own home country. I firmly believe that Paks 2 is not going to be constructed. Good evidence for this is that in the last 10 years, we gathered a 10-year delay in the project. We also hear about a gas deal, and now we quite often hear in this campaign that the traitors of this country are serving Putin's interest because of energy prices. We unraveled this lie. We quite often told that the utility price cap is complete nonsense. We also hear that Orbán is buying fuel at market price from Putin. There is no cheap Russian oil, even if it seems cheaper now. The only reason is that no one is buying that Russian oil because of the sanctions. But until there was a free open market, until the Germans bought Russian oil as well, Hungary also paid the market price with a 3-month delay. Hungary did not get anything from Russia, and the utility price cap was cheaper, not because they found the perpetuum mobile, but because this is paid by the taxpayers and Hungarian enterprises. Hungarian enterprises are paying 1.5 times of the price paid by German enterprises. The Hungarian economy cannot provide Western culture, positions and employment because these companies are not coming here because of high energy prices. But we also know that they are not serving the interests of Hungarian citizens and the Hungarian enterprises, but they are actually serving the MAT offshore company. The Hungarian government imported Russian oil through pipelines that actually the Hungarian state lost money even at the Hungarian border, and Hungarian oligarchs won money at that point. Viktor Orbán and his government drafted an energy strategy in 2014, which clearly stated that they would like to decrease Russian dependency on energy. But actually, this dependency increased to 80–90%, and that quite clearly shows that financial interest comes first for them. And now when the whole of the European Union and the US issued sanctions for everyone buying Russian oil, including India, but Szijjártó and Orbán, as agents of Putin, defend themselves that they only provide 2% to the Russian state budget. This 2% may not seem a lot, but in the Russian economy, this means that 40% of that economy is coming, or spent on destroying civilians and opposition forces. It means that this 2% of the state budget is responsible for 5% of crimes and murder committed in Ukraine. This means that, so once again, if we take this 2% away, then it means that we can do something against this 5%. That many children, kids, babies and mothers could be saved in Ukraine if Orban and the government would not purchase from Russia but from other pipelines, or as Orban actually promised when he promised a 2 billion USD Hungarian deal, including LNG. Let's not say that we cannot diversify, because Orban actually promised himself, proven himself that we could diversify and purchase from the US as well. But their business was more important for themselves, and to support a war criminal than saving the lives of babies and mothers.
In the past few weeks, something we weren't aware, couldn't be aware when we prepared for this conference, has turned out that in the 2000s, during the Gyurcsány government, there was a spy bank in the territory of Hungary. And there were also Russian criminals and agents between people who were allowed to settle in Hungary. Secret agents from Russia were allowed to enter Hungarian ministries, and it has already been proven that Szijjártó's ministry did not counter this infiltration, but as it has turned out, Szijjártó continuously gave reports to Lavrov, reported the Russian foreign minister requesting Russian support, interfering and mingling into other nations' affairs. Let me add that that Putin doesn't even like his puppet, Viktor Orban, because traitors are not only looked down upon by their own communities, but also by people who are their patrons, who are their leaders. Just look at the photo taken of that huge table at the two sides, at the two ends of which there was Viktor Orban and Putin. Just look at the press conference, the photos or video shots of the press conference when Putin abandoned Orban. And you might remember also when Juncker slapped Orban, saying, "Hi, hello, dictator." But there is even more, an even deeper humiliation when Orban was compelled to present himself in Beijing, and he was so embarrassed and he was so ashamed that he was always fidgeting with his bow tie, with his tie. So he was utterly humiliated, and it is quite humiliating to see such a prime minister, the only prime minister in Europe, maintaining a war emergency, while he does not have the courage to utter the word war in the presence of his patron. He always mentioned special military operation in Beijing in the presence of Putin. What a puppet government has this government become, what puppet country, puppet state Hungary has become, and we have suffered and we have been suffering this humiliation together with Orban. If we do not wish to continue living in a country which provokes utter poverty for its own citizens, if we don't allow the peace project of Europe to be hindered by a government. Just imagine that Orbán and Putin, his friend, are the only ones who are pro-war. Plus his other friend, Trump, who I believe has attacked 8 countries. In brackets, let me tell you that nobody should believe that after Syria, Venezuela and Iran, these are not only Russia's last allies, but also China's energy resources. And China, let's remember, is one of Trump's main global adversary. In today's turbulent world, and we can also talk about the Third World War, it is not paranoia. These conflicts are all carrying a kernel of the possibility of the Third War. Those who are warmongers like Putin who bombed to dust Syria, Putin who threatened and then invaded Georgia, and let us not forget about China, which is pursuing preparations for war. And let me also remember here President Trump, who is selling weapons also to Hungary. Contrarily to this, the European Union has never attacked anyone. In the past 70 years, a warranty for peace in the world, especially for Europe, was the peace project of Europe. That is really a pro-peace project. We have to be firm on behalf of peace. We have to be firm on behalf of keeping Europe together. We have to be firm to give the solution of not less but more Europe against poverty, against war. This more Europe or more exuberant Europe is being represented by those people who will be talking today. This is what the European People's Party, Democratic Party is representing. Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank the European Democratic Party for having accepted the People's Party of Everyone's Hungary. We will keep fighting together for Hungary and for a unified Europe. As my conclusion, let me tell you, if someone shouldn't know here, Édes Anna, novel by Dezső Kosztolányi starts with a scene with Béla Kun, who is fleeing Hungary towards Russia with all sorts of treasures and keepsakes in his pockets. Then there was another communist leader, Sándor Mátyás Rákosi, who fled Hungary in the same way, fled to Russia, I believe, to Krasnodar, and every puppet like Gruevski and every other person also today can expect to be welcome in Russia. I believe Viktor Orbán will await the results of the April 12th election, not in the Bálna this time, but at the airport waiting to flee Hungary. Let us liberate Hungary and Europe from Russian interference. Russians go home. Péter Márki-Zay, Secretary General, President of People's Party of Everyone's Hungary. So we could also learn that not only Péter Magyar can cause worries for Orbán, but also because of Fico, because he could lose his position, his opportune position at Putin. This is what puppets do everywhere in Bratislava, Budapest and Washington DC, and this is what we are fighting against here in Budapest and everywhere all over Europe. Péter Márki-Zay has also raised an intriguing question. Whatever happened during that meeting between Putin and Orbán in 2009? Maybe our next speaker can answer this question. Károly Herényi, ex-faction leader of Hungarian Democratic Forum, a party which was a key party in the change of the regime. Maybe he's the person who is most suitable to reply this question. Ladies and gentlemen, Károly Herényi. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for your attention, and let me give you a warm welcome. I am really honored and privileged to speak right after a candidate for the position of Prime Minister. In my world, Péter Márki-Zay is an eternal candidate for the Prime Minister. He is well prepared and he has all the honesty, integrity and every feature to do so. We are not sufficiently rich nation to neglect such talented people. I spent 12 years in the Hungarian parliament between 98 until 2010. However, from 1988, the foundation of Hungarian Democratic Forum, I was involved in Hungarian democratic processes. Then, thanks to József Antal, I became the spokesperson of Hungarian Democratic Forum. Let me quote a sentence from Antal that I believe is of remarkable importance. He once said, "Whoever thinks that the Russian bear is dead is wrong. The Russian bear is hibernating. The Russian bear, whenever sees opportunity to wake up, will and surely will wake up, and with all sorts of means, energetic and all sorts of other means, will attempt to regain its imperial status that it once had during the Soviet Union." So we might say he was also a sort of a soothsayer or prophet, because this is what we are witnessing today. My first experience with regard to Viktor Orbán, because also President has mentioned some sentences, I have known him for a long time. In 1994, maybe you might remember, there was the first coalition between the Hungarian Democratic Forum lost 2/3 of its voters, and the whole coalition did, and then we were forced into opposition. That's normal in a democracy. And then I said to Lajos Fűr, who was the Minister of Defense, Mr. President, he was the president of the party at that time, there's this talented person. Everyone is an elderly person here around us except for him. We could start some cooperation with him. And then I saw his eyes went into tears, and he said that he had been an agent. He was a 3/2 agent, and then Lajos Fűr told me, if you are uncertain because you don't believe me, just ask Balázs Horváth, because he had a full vision on all these things. And I asked, and he confirmed that Viktor Orbán had become an agent. Now, let me tell you, it is not a problem if somebody was contacted by the secret agency during the state socialism, because we don't know what methods they used. There was a priest, for instance, who was enrolled into the services by making an alcohol test with him after Holy Mass. And there was the mass wine which was detected. I also remember a person who had difficulty obtaining medicine for his own mother, and they told him that he could only buy medicine from abroad for his own mother if he joins secret services. What else could he do? He was obliged to join. The problem, as József Antal said, is not to be enrolled into the secret services, but the problem is if somebody is not open about it. It is unacceptable and intolerable in political life. Let me get to my main point. It's not really a secret that I discovered, that I unveiled. A lot of people were aware of it, that he had been enrolled into the agency. The documents that were still around in the early 90s are not to be found, only dossier number 6, which witnesses his enrollment. But you might remember what happened when, at the change of the regime, truckloads of these documents were carried away to be destroyed. And in the early 90s, there was also a committee of transparency which investigated all sorts of members of the parliament, members of the government, everyone, including me. And I asked the head judge of this committee whether they were capable of ascertaining the date of release of the document. And they said no. He said no. And I said it's quite a problem, because now with today's current technology, any sort of document can be produced and anybody could get compromised with a falsified document. So I believe everybody who had at their disposal any sort of document should have published it. Otherwise, we cannot avoid whether someone comes to the fore with such a document to blackmail somebody else. None of the parties endorsed. I also was proposed that for 50 million forints I would be handed over every document that are about me. I didn't have either 50 million forints nor the willingness to accept it. However, I couldn't cite them to court because there was no witness, so I couldn't have won a legal case against them. However, let's talk about the date of 2009, the date of the change. Let me first start with an event that occurred in 2008. In the spring of that year, I was phoned by János Veres, then Minister of Finance, Socialist Minister of Finance, and he asked me to visit him that Monday morning together with every fraction leader. I was there and there was everybody else, and he told me, even though he was not compelled by law, that he had returned the previous day from Moscow, where they had been preparing a draft that he was about to present to the parliament, and he wanted us to support it. It was about the southern current, the gas conduct, to build about the building of the gas conduct. We read the draft and we believe that it cannot be bad for Hungary. It might be a good deal for Hungary that would have taken Russian gas through Hungary, Turkey and Serbia to Italy. Tibor Navracsics was next to me, who was head of the Fidesz parliamentary group. He examined the document accurately, and he said, after examining it twice, he said, I didn't find any problem in it. And so we believed it was worthy to be supported, that proposal, because we believed it would create workplaces, plus there would have been some transit fee for the transition of the gas. Then that afternoon, János Veres presented the document. It was not Tibor Navracsics who talked about in the name of the biggest party, Fidesz, in the parliament, but Viktor Orbán, and said this would be a betrayal of the nation. Poor Navracsics next to me was in the chair next to me, and he apparently felt ashamed because that was not our previous deal. Then in 2010, Viktor Orbán became again prime minister, and he started making friends with all sorts of dictators, not only the Russian one, but also the Turkish one. That's when he turned his back to the European Union and his old friends, his former friends. And that's when he started saying that the Southern Current would be an excellent deal. So he made a U-turn, and from that moment onwards, he became one of the main spokespersons of the Southern Current. By the way, European Union had another initiative. Nabucco was the name of the other gas conduct, but three things have not been revealed: who would build it, from what funds, and where the gas would come on that conduct. However, let me state, Viktor Orbán made this U-turn in 2008, said that would be a betrayal of the Hungarian nation if the parliament accepted this proposal. So that was not even debated in the House. It was immediately scrapped, and the whole media was full of Orbán's declaration. 2009, in 2015, I published an article entitled "In the Web of Putin." I sent it to Népszabadság, which then still existed. I wasn't a member of the parliament anymore at that time, so I could only publish such a thing in the press. And they responded me that they are not sufficiently funded to pay for all the lawyers if they published my article, because they would have been sued. Maybe you are aware of Joseph Heller's novel entitled "Something Happened." So I wrote in that tone of the novel, in hypothetical and conditional sentences. My article was about the possible reasons of this change. I didn't take it. I won't read it. I took it here. Even if it might be caused by the age of the prime minister or hormonal, and we can exclude all these other reasons. What could be the reason of this U-turn? The solution I found in the biography of written by Miklós Németh about the previous prime minister, because the previous prime minister said to Miklós Németh that if somebody is curious about the secrets of the services, he should go to the KGB's center to Moscow, and he would find every document. Until April 1990, there were the representatives of Russian services in every committee, and they could take every document in their original form or in copy. That's when it occurred to me. If here at home only dossier number 6 about his enrollment has been preserved, because we know that they were sent for disposal and to be scrapped. And there was also László Kövér, who probably did his best to destroy these documents. So if somebody is curious about the truth, he should go to the former KGB center to Moscow. And I have a friend who told me that for 100 euros you could get any document you want. So my idea is that in 2009, at that St. Petersburg meeting that the president also mentioned here before me, probably he was informed that that the services in Moscow are aware of his previous involvement. If we are aware of it, that's okay. But if foreign powers are aware of it, that could be a huge problem, not only for Viktor Orbán, and it is not a threat to Hungary, but it would be a threat to the European Union and to everybody who is on favor of European democracy and peace. So I believe this is one of the reasons.
There could be another reason, because Emilio Moigavich, who visited Hungary quite often, one of the biggest Russian investors, he actually had government ties close to the government, which most probably we will not find the essence of, but we knew as much as that it was a big amount of money, big economic interest. He was also convicted in Russia, actually, as well, so not a law-abiding Russian citizen, but a large entrepreneur who used all possible means to gather money. So I think these may be the two items, points where they can blackmail Viktor Orbán. Although I think that in his circles, his popularity wouldn't be destroyed, wouldn't be actually affected if this came to light. Just think about the last, 3.5 decades, the decades of hope, right? And now we arrived to a point where there are political sects and tribes, and they are all doing the same. And I think the nation is not benefiting from this political fight, because in 1990, when it was about joining the parliament, we, us Hungarian Democrats, wanted, to be part of the decision making. We did not want power. No one dreamt of power alone or two-third power. We did not think about that. A Democrat never wants a two-third majority. Democracy is about aligning different interests. You can do it well, and you can do it really bad. And over the last 3.5 decades, I think we are not really passing the exam. Neither the politicians nor their supporters, because no one is born a Democrat. We are not Democrats by genetics. This is a political, social culture that we must learn. And I think so far we did not manage to do that. This is not an A grade on the exam, but as an eternal optimist, I hope that we are maybe, at the 1/3 of the development, and hopefully this country will, turn out to be a country similar to the country of St. Stephen, József Antal. Hopefully we will be a republic once again with a constitution. This is the hope with which I would like to extend my welcome to all of you, and with which I would like to motivate and encourage you to be part of the election process. Vote, and let's not lose hope. Thank you very much for listening to me. Károly Herényi, former head of the parliamentary group of the Hungarian Democratic Forum. Viktor Orbán, as a possible communist Russian spy, is a threat to Hungary, Europe, and democracy. Károly Herényi talked about that as well. But as someone obsessed with power, can he actually change? Obsessed with power, probably that rings a bell to those who have read the books of Stefano Bottoni. Stefano Bottoni, an associate professor of the University of Florence and the author of several popular books on autocracy and the power of Viktor Orbán. He's going to talk about this today, the way out of this autocratic system. Ladies and gentlemen, Stefano Bottoni. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the invitation and for your attention. First of all, I would like to say that I'm not a member of the Hungarian Academy of Science per se. You know, they are very careful about that. So I'm not an academician per se. But I'm a university associate professor, I'm a university associate professor, but you know, I feel quite comfortable in this circle. I love my job in Florence, I love teaching, working together with young historians, and among other things, when I'm teaching, I see how little they know about Central Eastern Europe, my field of research, and how about Hungary. And so I feel quite honored that because you know I know a lot more than the average Italian historian about this region. I spent majority of my time actually. I can convey you know up-to-date knowledge to them, which may be useful for them. In the coming next 15-16 minutes, I would like to talk about four things. One is that is how we can include 16 years of NER, the System of National Cooperation, in the history of Hungary. I think no matter what happens on the April elections, it would be a big mistake if we put these 16 years into brackets and just think that Hungarian democracy can continue its journey that it started before 2010. Hungary in the last 110 years you know, was a lab of ideological warfare in Europe. This country, which is quite small today with 10 million of a population, actually had 6 authoritarian systems in the last 100 years. I think that's quite a feat, actually. And before 1989, 90, this country had a few months, couple of years of democracy. Between 1918 and 1990, worst circumstances. Between 47, 48, a rather debated democracy, heavily influenced and threatened by the Russian Soviet Empire. That's all. That is our modern democratic tradition. And in 1989, if you know, we made a collective mistake on behalf of intellectuals and society, was the one to think that these democratic traditions can be you know, reacted easily. They weren't. And the second is that these rather far-away traditions and debated traditions are enough. They weren't. So we built up a procedural democracy, a legal construct, which was working well as a legal construct. But once in 2006-07, this construct entered into crisis with a long agony until 2010, then most of the Hungarian society, you know, threw this democracy out of the window, and they did not feel sorry for it. That's a big problem. We have an issue with democracy. That's my first statement. The second statement is that it's quite easy to draw a parallel between 1989 and 2026, because we may say that in 1989 we managed to change the regime. Why couldn't we do that now? The parallel may work, but I have one problem with that. I don't want to be an eternal pessimist, but we should clearly see that in 1989 there was a supporting international environment. So U.S. President was called George Bush Sr. No matter what you think of him, he wasn't a madman like the one now. So he was a different character and quality of a man. And the Soviet Communist Party was led by Gorbachev. And if the Soviet Union had, in the 74 years, had, just one almost humanistic leader who actually believed in peace and living peacefully along each other, and truly believed that he would like to change at least his own society, and in 1988 announced the Sinatra Doctrine, and led Eastern European countries, making our change of regime possible. Instead of Gorbachev, we have a mass murderer, Putin. And besides that, we have a new superpower which wasn't there in 1989, China. We have a fully illiberal Israel, a fully illiberal Turkey. These are the friends of Viktor Orban and allies. And when it comes to the internal situation, no matter what I think as a historian or as a person about the last members of the Hungarian Social Party, they were compared to today, they were quite moderate Democrats, humanists, who understood that okay, that's it. We have to move on. We cannot keep power. Between 89 and 90, they managed a peaceful transition handover of that power. About the current party, we can tell a lot, but we shouldn't go as far as saying that they are preparing for this. That's a huge difference. Third statement: what's at stake during the election? It's an important issue for Hungary. Hungary is the first electoral autocracy of the European Union, hybrid regime or almost dictatorship. I'm not a political scientist. I'm a historian. I have been debating political scientists why we need these certain definitions which can shed light on one moment of a long process. While actually what's important is the progress, the movement, because the system of national cooperation was different in 2010, 2016, and now. This is progress, change, constant change, and we must understand this process. And I think for Hungary, what's at stake is we are the western margin of European Union, or we turn into Belarus. András Rácz, Péter, Buda, great foreign policy experts said so in the coming or in the previous last weeks. This is what at stake. It's not about policies, not about the pension system, not about prices. First and foremost, it's about what kind of a country we will live in 5 to 10 years. What's the message to the world? Sometimes we think that Hungary is really small and irrelevant, and other times we say that everything is important. What's happening here, we are in the limelight. Maybe we don't know it, but we are in the limelight. I think these elections, and these days are among the rare moments when truly, if me, a small man, is approached by dozens of journalists from Australia and all over the world, and they want to know what will happen here. And of course, I don't know what will happen here. I cannot tell who will win, why they will win, and whether they will hand over. Orban is going to hand over the power. You should ask him whether he's willing to do that if he's forced to. So Hungary matters, truly matters now. I think that this lab role that I mentioned earlier is back. And while for 20 years there was a democratic backsliding happening here, we were talking about this and we were saying that this is a world phenomena all around the world, and Hungary is the forerunners of this process trend. If there was a graph on this in 2000 from 2006 and 11 and 12, with even greater extent, Hungary is backsliding, and around 2020 we lose full democratic status, and now we are, halfway to Belarus situation, as András Rácz said yesterday, actually, in the Inga Kultur Cafe. We are Belarus in 2005. That's not something to be proud of, especially because András Rácz is a Belarus expert, so he knows Minsk very well. So for me, that tells a lot. So Hungary matters globally. The world is looking at us, paying attention to us, and what's happening here can have a message. And the message is the following: whether a European Union member state can make a U-turn in its fate when the biggest global powers are not interested in this turn. Could be an interesting parallel, because Russians tried similar maneuvers like Georgia or Moldova or Romania. In Georgia, they were successful. In Moldova and Romania, they failed. Romania is a NATO and EU member, Moldova not. But in both places, Russians had to operate while the local government, local democracy, local diplomats and secret services were working against them. So Russians had to turn the situation. And we must see that in Hungary the situation is different. In Hungary, they are working together with the power that's supporting them. They don't have to contradict M1, the public media channel. This channel is doing their work on its own. They don't have to, purchase journalists, because half of the profession, if we can call them professionals, are there in the editorial teams, and the message is spread. So we must quite clearly see that while we are EU and NATO members, and quite clearly that fact that Mr. Szijjártó had, hour-long love letters sent to Lavrov, and hopefully they will be leaked at the right time, live occasion. So there are messages about the fact that, okay, we know who you are and what you are doing. But Hungary is in a different situation, because here the state apparatus is organically joining this project. So our situation is severe. That's all I want to say. Appelbaum wrote a very important article, I think published last week, about the Hungarian elections. And Radek Sikorski, she is the wife of the Polish minister, foreign minister, so there I guess the flow of information is at a high level, where she said that Hungary is the first post-fact election in the 21st century. What's severe about this election is that it's not just post-truth, it's post-facts. There is a whole election campaign with the complete lack of facts. That's a novelty, a very important novelty in a lab state. And to say something motivating around the end, there is a certain hope in the 24th hour. I think everything happening since 2024 is a slow dismantling of the power state of the system of national cooperation. The fact that they cannot do anything with Péter Magyar for 2 years now. Someone not expected, the internal traitor, the worst kind, because he knows everything about us. He knows the technologies, and he built up this movement, and the discontent was there. A lot of people felt that there is discontent, there is anxiety, hatred within the society. People started hating Fidesz. That was not characteristic. Earlier, apathy was there, but this kind of hatred turning into a political thing, that's very dangerous for them. And that is the hope of Democrats who are, preparing to vote for this post-modern People's Front. And these people are different. In this huge river, there's a river next to us here, but we are thinking about another river a bit more to the east. There are lots of fish, different fish, but they are swimming in the same direction. So something started happening here, and this has a message for Hungary. So I see a certain political, social activity in the last 1.5 years, which I couldn't have imagined to be possible in this country under these circumstances. And it has a message to Europe. There is a global message. The message is that these processes can be turned back, and you can bring a democratic system back. And as a historian, I think it's very important to state that one piece of hope is that we should learn about the events, the mistakes made in the 20th century after 1990, and with 2026. We shouldn't only dismantle this 16 years of Fidesz, but this kind of failed history of failures, 48, 56, half success of 89. So with 2026, we should close the 20th century and enter the 21st century. Thank you very much.
With 2026, let us conclude the 20th century and let us step into the 21st century. Stefano Bottoni, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And another important message is that on the 12th of April, we will be voting, us Hungarians, whether we choose West or East, whether we choose Belarus or the EU. It is also important because we have been celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Revolution of '56. Sandro Gozi has just said that the spirit of '56 compels us to defend Hungary from Moscow again. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary General of the European Democratic Party, Sandro Gozi.
To you all, thanks dear Peter, thanks for this very, very important initiative, thanks for joining the European Democrats, and thanks for fighting a battle which is important for all of us, and this is why we are here as European Democrats. We are here because we think that what is happening in Hungary is not only an Hungarian issue, it's a European issue, it's a global issue, because every time the democracy is at stake, we are there to defend democracy and to defend the Democrats. And this is what is happening in Hungary today. So you said it all. All the speaker has emphasized why the decision that you are going to take on the 12th of April is so important, not only for Hungary, but for Europe, but for the world of freedom and democracy. Peter, you mentioned the Third World War. Pope Francis had a very important expression, which unfortunately corresponds to the truth. And I would say that the war in Iran, again, confirmed that Pope Francis was right when he said that we are living a third war fought into pieces. And as I believe that we are living a third world fought into pieces, it's even more important to choose the right side of history. And this is another issue which is at stake on the 12th of April. The Hungarian citizens must freely, I hope, choose the right side or the wrong side of history. To choose whether they want to be on the west, on the east. Even to choose whether they want to become, as Professor Bottoni said, a new Belarus, or remain and become again a free European state. That European state which I knew, which I met when with President Prodi, I was in this cabinet, we are negotiating the accession of Hungary to the European Union. At the time, Hungary freely chose Europe, freely chose democracy, freely chose rule of law. The politics of Viktor Orban betrayed all this. The politics of Viktor Orban are the biggest betrayal of the free choice of the Hungarian people when they decided to become member of the European family in 2004. And this is another reason why this election is important not only for you, but for all of us, for all the Europeans, for all the all the Democrats. So as Professor Bottoni said, I would say that the title of your election is "Which side are you on?" Choose. Where do you want to stay? Do you want to stay with Russia, or do you want to stay with the European Union? Do you want to continue the authoritarian drift, or you want to come back to the democratic paths? Do you want to stay on the side of new imperialist policies, or you want to build up a post-national, effective European policy? This is the choice. And the choice, it is in the end, it's a choice which is in the end of each Hungarian voters. As European Democrats, we are in Belgrade, we are in Istanbul, we are in Budapest, we are everywhere. The democratic freedom and the freedom as all, it is violated. This is why in Paris last week we received all the representatives of the opposition party from Serbia. This is why I tried, but Erdogan prevented me from going to meet the mayor of Istanbul, Imamoglu, in jail. This is why we are here today, because we think that we need to accompany everywhere the battle for democracy. Yes, Peter, you're right. Thank you. Yes, Peter, you're right. Russian influence is not only in Hungary. Russian influence is in Italy. We say that Italy is the among the biggest, the big European countries, the one which is most affected by Russian propaganda under several forms. Russian influence is present in France. Russian influence is present together with Chinese one in Germany. Russian influence played a key role on the Brexit referendum. So certainly, I mean, you are not original from this perspective. But what we heard is that, I mean, you got a very active prime minister in accompanying the Russian propaganda, probably the most active prime minister now together with his friend Robert Fico. On this, you are number one. On this, you have the champion. You win the Champions League of Russian submission. Sure, on that, no doubt you do not have other competitors. I really do not understand, and I hope that this post-fact election, to quote Appelbaum, won't fall on the wrong side, on the side of Viktor Orban. But I really got problem to understand why Viktor Orban hates so much the European cooperation based on common rules, and loves so much the submission to Russia and Putin based on brutal power. I really don't understand. Why do you prefer to be submitted to a Russian dictator than being one of the free actors playing the European games and playing and contributing to European politics. It's really very difficult to understand. It's certainly something which goes against the strong interest of the Hungarian people. Certainly being the puppet of Putin, being submitted to Putin is not in your interest. And this is why you really need a fundamental change. And this is why I really hope that you can say again, Ruszkik, Haza. It is big time. It is unbelievable that after 70 years, we are here again. After the democratic, the effort that you made and the betrayal that you lived as a people in 1956, you have to fight against another betrayal. 70 years after. I really did not expect, however, such a strong support of the Hungarian government to our event, dear Peter. If we had paid Peter Ziarto to promote the event Russia Go Home, I don't think we could have done better than he has done. Taking instruction live from Lavrov, from the seat of the European Council, while the other head of state and government in the European Council were deciding how to help the democratic fight of Zelensky. It's not Zelensky with the wrong side. It's not Zelensky the threat of Hungary. It's Russia the threat of Hungary. So this propaganda that I see also coming from the airport here against Zelensky, against Europe, it's really post-fact. It's really post-fact. Zelensky is fighting for all of us. The Ukrainian sacrifice is a sacrifice for all of us. And the choice that you will make on the 12th of April is also a choice to support the democratic fight for freedom of Ukraine or to support the Russian aggression against Ukraine. This is what it is at stake. So, it's really something where we have to choose between independence and submission, freedom and autocracy, common future as European, and being on the side of the empires, of course, being submitted to the empires. I really don't understand the politics of Viktor Orban, also because, we could say in a very pragmatic way, very pragmatic, yes, but at least we are richer, we are better off, the economy goes better than in other countries, so what do you want? Yes, of course, we renounce a little bit of democracy, we have to give 3 calls per week to Lavrov, we have to, being inclined to Putin or Xi Jinping, but we are better off than you, so what do you want? No, you are not better off than the other, you are worse off than the other. Hungary is one of the countries which had the worst performances in terms of growth, in terms of jobs, in terms of inflation, of all the Central and Eastern Europe. And even Romania, which was lagging very far behind you, now is doing better than Hungary. This is the result of the bad choice of Orban. So it really doesn't, not only the democracy is violated in Hungary, but also the economic performance. Because, notwithstanding what Putin, Xi Jinping, and others wants to make us to believe, when you don't have transparency, when you violate the rule of law, you cannot have a performance economics. The two things go together. And this is why the politics of Orban are a double mistake and are a double damage to the Hungarian people. Not only because you got a less democratic country, but you also less performing country from the economic point of view. And also this, the third reason why I really don't understand Viktor Orban. I don't understand his hate against the European Union. It's the fact that Hungary, since you joined, and even before you joined, not only Hungary, other countries, but Hungary has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the European fund, the European budget. And now, because of the bad policy of Orban, there are billions and billions of euros which are frozen, that could come here to help your business, to help your local authorities, to help your civil societies, to help your economic growth, to help to create jobs, which are frozen because of the blatant violation of rule of law, of freedom of media, of freedom of academic expression by Viktor Orban. So really, I mean, Viktor Orban is a bad news and bad business for your country. Really. And also, the last point, because I will be very short. The last point is that, you know, when you put a veto and you paralyze Europe, and you prevent Europe from existing, because Europe exists only through action. Europe is not, an entity which is there, fall from the sky. Europe exists if it can act. Europe exists if it can help the economic growth of Hungary. Europe exists if it can sanction Russia for the violation of the territorial integrity of Ukraine. So when you put a veto, you flex your muscle and you satisfy your national pride. I block them. But in fact, weakening Europe means weakening Hungary. Weakening Europe is making Russia stronger. Weakening Europe is making China stronger. Weakening Europe is making European weaker and the other empires stronger. So also from this perspective, the shameful use of veto that Orban has been doing the last years, not only goes against the interests of Europe, but goes directly against the interests of Hungary. So, yes. So, Russian, go home, Europe remain free, and Hungary will soon become free again. Thank you very much.
European Democratic Party, a true freedom fighter and a true defender of Europe. Thank you so much. Ne feledjük Sandro.
Let's not forget the words of Sandro Gozi. Orban has failed because he hasn't prevailed in defending Hungary from Russians. And on the 12th of April, I believe, also Hungarians have to cast their ballots knowing this. That's how we end our conference, Ruszkik Haza. Let me thank our presenters, Péter Márki-Zay, President of the People's Party of Everyone's Hungary, Károly Herényi, ex-faction leader of Hungarian Democratic Forum, Stefano Bottoni, historian and author, associate professor of the University of Florence, and last but not least, Sandro Gozi, Secretary General of the European Democratic Party. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your interest here in the Duna rendezvényház in Budapest. And thank you for having followed our live transmission on the channels of European Democratic